This is Rebecca Lowe, or Rebecca Lua if you listen to Suboptimal Radio, and you are listening to Men in Blazers on the NBC Sports Network.
It's unbelievable!
This is Rog. It's been a year of many projects, but one I found among the most interesting was shooting behind the scenes as Landon Donovan's retirement approached. The end product was a 4-part documentary, The Finish Line, which I produced with my film partner, the great John Hock, for ESPN and Grantland, where it can still be seen. I found the project fascinating because Landon's such an open yet complex character, a man whose career straddled a time of radical transition for US soccer. When he broke through as a fresh-faced bottle blonde in the early 2000s, the sport's profile was very tree-falling in empty forest. He retires with America in full thrall as the sport has ventured from the shadowed periphery towards the centre of the nation's sporting radar. The second reason is that Landon's battled with depression throughout his career, publicly wrestling with mental fatigue during and after his sabbatical. I interviewed the Californian twice in that period, and honestly, he sounded like hundreds of people I know who've lost their love for their job, and I was impressed by both his self-awareness and willingness to brave the derision of those who refused to sympathise with his predicament. To honour his retirement, we thought it would be interesting to air some of our finish line interviews. For the record, I believe that with time, Landon will be appreciated for what he truly is, a human, complex, always intelligent, often breathtaking footballer, a genuine US goal threat in an era in which American goalkeepers were more the norm, a home-loving player who suffered for his decision to remain in MLS, a reality which has become standard, and an inventive spark on national teams built to persevere, a divisive figure in the US who's admired in England, especially at Everton, and both feared and respected in Mexico. Landon's a human being in an image-dominated age who knew exactly when he needed to take a break, a complicated man who excelled at a very simple game. I've rarely met an athlete who talks more about the need to love what they're doing, to be the best at it. You need a flow, a happiness. Can you describe that feeling, what it feels like for you when you have it?
I remember being very young and playing in youth tournaments and scoring goals and 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 people on the sidelines cheering. And I remember the visceral reaction I would have to that. It gives me goosebumps talking about it now. And when people would cheer, there was this sense of acceptance. There was this sense of pride, obviously. There was this excitement inside me. And so I've always carried that with me, and I've always just genuinely loved going out and playing. And I promised myself that if it ever got to a place where it wasn't that way, that I wouldn't do it. You know, I've trained my whole life, but it's not like I went to college to play soccer, or I went to trade school to play soccer. I just played because I loved playing. And I guess I haven't seen it in the same way that other people see sports in that way. I've always just seen it as something that I enjoy doing, and as long as I can enjoy doing it, I'll do it.
When have you had the most happiness as a professional?
I think my first year in Major League Soccer, for a kid at that age, playing under the lights in front of big crowds with these great teammates, that for me was the absolute dream come true. I mean, I went out every day to training ecstatic to be there and to play. And it was just easy for me. I didn't try, my body felt great. I never got treatment, I never got work done on it was just very easy. I would go out every day and play, and I just loved it.
You were so young when you broke through in MLS in 2000. First newspaper article I found about you, it said, Landon Donovan still takes a teddy bear on road trips.
Well, I don't remember if it was in MLS, but certainly when I was with the under-17 national team, I used to take a teddy bear. Not quite sure why I did that. I was a young kid. We'll chalk it up to being a dumb young kid.
But at the same time, 19 was the first article I found where it said Landon Donovan, poster boy, saviour of American soccer. I mean, at an incredibly early age for that accolade. Was that motivational for you at the time, or did that suddenly feel like a huge burden?
At 19 years old, being named a face of a sport in your country is exciting, actually, and it's great for the ego, because you can look around and say, oh, this is great, look at me. As I got older, that perception changed a little bit, but at that age, I was ecstatic. I loved playing. I was playing well. I felt like I was invincible in the soccer world, and I felt like this life was gonna be wonderful, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
Your mother, Donna Kenny Cash, beautiful article where she talked about the differences between you and your twin sister, Tristan. She said Landon's more like a 25 or 30-year-old, while Tristan acts like any other kid her age. This was at 19. She said, sometimes I wish he could have been naive just a little bit longer. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think the biggest part that people don't realize about young kids playing soccer is that you're forced to grow up quickly. And a lot of people used to say to me, gosh, you're so mature for your age, and that's so great. And at the time, it would feel good. And now in retrospect, I say, well, gosh, I wish I could have just been a kid more, because being a kid would have allowed me to do things that kids do and sort of naturally let you develop as a human being. When kids are cut off from that at an early age, it's very difficult. I look at young kids now that don't have the chance to be kids and how it affects them later in life, and it's sad.
You said when Bayer Leverkusen came for you, you didn't have an agent, you didn't even really know who they were. Would it be true to say that you became a soccer player professionally, accidentally?
Absolutely. I always felt that soccer chose me. I didn't choose soccer. And what I mean by that is that I genuinely and truly just played growing up because it's what I love to do. There was never an end goal. In some ways, and this is going to sound crazy, but in some ways I almost regret that it wasn't a conscious decision where I said, yes, I want to do this, I want to play soccer, I just sort of was going with the flow, and people came and said, here, we're going to pay you $100 grand to come play in Germany. I said, great, let's do it, you know. But I didn't really sit down and consciously say, this is what I want for my life. So it sort of just chose me.
I'm going to hit the World Cup a little bit. The 2002 round of 16 goal against Mexico.
The opportunity to play Mexico in a World Cup was incredible, and what makes it special is that there's a very real chance that we'll never play Mexico again in a World Cup. So when you think about it from a historical context, from a bragging rights context, this win was arguably as big a win as we've ever had in a World Cup. And so for us going into that game, I remember how excited we were. I remember equally as well post-game celebrating like we've never celebrated after a game. And remember, we pulled up to a stoplight and the Mexican team bus pulled up right next to us, and they were miserable, and we were shaking the whole bus and yelling at them, and it was a memory I'll never forget.
The 2006 World Cup, you were scapegoated in the media. We've talked about it before. You told me that you thought about quitting then. You once said, I realized I didn't need this. Coming home, I went into this depression for a couple of weeks where I was like, my identity was so wrapped up in soccer and I failed, and my whole world came crashing down around that. Can you put into words, because we're all journalists or football fans, we don't understand what it's like to be in that room, to have your world come crashing down. Can you give us a sense? Can you talk about the symptoms or what it felt like?
For me, and this was a lot of it was wrapped up in my ego. My complete identity had become this star soccer player, and my ego was being fed constantly, and it loved it. So every time I scored a goal, it was like so great, and everybody loves you. And until that World Cup, it had always been positive, 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 positive. After that World Cup, for the first time in my life, I heard a lot of negative. And that, for me, was a massive ego hit. And it was shattering, you know, to think of yourself and see yourself in this almost ideal way, this perfect way. And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, you're not that good, one. You let us down, two. And three, if you don't do well, we don't give a about you. And so that was a lot in there that was a lot of realizing for me that this can be very ugly. For as good as it felt and as happy as it was, it can get really ugly really fast. And that was a very hard time for me, because when you shatter your ego, when that breaks down, that's very painful, because your ego is holding on for dear life and it still wants that. But I realized at that time that I have to shed that, and I have to get rid of that, and I have to be more even keel, because I can't deal with this sort of high and low anymore. The high feels great, but when you come down from it, it's awful. And so I sort of vowed to myself at that time that I'm going to be a good person, a good teammate. I'm going to give everything I have. I'm going to do my best on the field. I'm not going to get caught up as much in results anymore. I'm going to play my best, do my best, but I'm not going to get on these big swings of emotion, because it's very hard to deal with.
Was there a second where you're like, I'm done?
Yeah.
Then?
Yeah. There was a lot of moments in the weeks following 2006 where I was convinced that I was done. I spoke to my family, my agent, people close to me, and I said, I've had enough, and explained to them that I didn't want to go through this anymore. You know, in hindsight, it was an easy way to sort of flee the pain of that. And I'm glad, in retrospect, that I didn't flee and that I stuck through it. But what I told myself at that time was, I'm no longer going to play in a way where I allow myself to regret it afterwards. If I don't win another game the rest of my career, but I lay it out on the field every time I play, that's 100% fine. But that's what I want to do, because I really let myself down during 2006, and I had this opportunity to do something great and something special, and I just let myself down in the way I played, and I didn't want to do that again.
2010, that goal, I mean, thousands celebrated in bars across the nation. What did you feel at the bottom of the pile as you were smothered at the corner flag by it? Even Michael Bradley's smiling. It's amazing to watch. It's like, what did it feel? Take a sec.
So I score the goal against Algeria, and I turn the corner, and in those moments, you don't have anything planned. You don't know what you're doing. Your body just sort of takes over, and your emotion takes over. And so I remember sprinting, and I saw all of our bench up off the bench sprinting towards me at the corner. And I slid down into the corner flag, and I had this split second where I went, oh, because I knew people were going to start piling on. And I don't do well with claustrophobic situations anyway, and then there's all this weight piled on. So I covered my head, and I remember being down there, and at some point after a few seconds, I just remember saying, okay, get up, get up, get up, get up, get up, trying to get someone's attention to get off me so that I could breathe again. It was incredible. And it's cool to score a goal at the end of a game like that with that importance, because you know in that moment you can really let go and celebrate, because you only have to get through a couple minutes without conceding a goal, and then you can let it all go. If you score that goal in the 15th minute or the 30th minute, you got the rest of the game to sort of manage still. So we were able to just really let go, and it was awesome.
What's your relationship with that goal? Because it is like the goal that defines you to Mr. Joe Sports Public in America.
I think I don't fully understand, even still, the magnitude of that goal, because certainly when I came back to the States, my profile grew 1,000-fold in every way. Marketability from people walking down the street, casual fans, hardcore soccer fans. I think a lot of things changed. But for me, it's my job. It's what I'm there to do. And of course it was special, and it was a different goal, and it meant a lot, but I don't see it that way. I see it as we all did our job to get in that position. The ball happened to fall to me, but it could have happened to fall to a lot of people. And it was, it was part of what we do. But I do understand why people connect with it emotionally. I'm a sports fan. I've connected many times with athletic achievements and events like that. So I get it, but it's just hard for me to see it the way everyone else sees it.
we're going to talk about 2014. I talked to you a month before the roster set in Stanford, and you were fairly candid that you weren't sure where you stood a month before the World Cup. Inside, were you not sure?
There was a tiny piece of me that had some trepidation that maybe Jurgen would do something crazy and leave me off. And I didn't believe it in my heart that that would happen, but I knew that that was possible. You know, we had many people who worked for us for a long time who were an integral part of the national team for many years, including our assistant coach, who Jurgen got rid of quickly. And so it made all of us sort of think, well, gosh, if you can do that to them, it can happen to any of us. And he's certainly been known for doing that to people over the years. So it was certainly in the very, very back of my mind, but I didn't think it was a reality that I would actually get left off the team.
At the end of the day, do you put it down to the fact that you, Landon Donovan, and Jurgen Klinsmann just look at life very differently?
You know, I think in his heart of heart, he knows that I was one of the best 23 players in our country and that I deserve to be there. But for whatever reason, he made the decision not to include me. And I think in retrospect, he would tell you it was a mistake, and I think he knows that. And for me, we all make mistakes, and that's a part of life. And I've forgiven him. I think he has to live with that decision and what might have been in the World Cup. For me, I just had to move on, and I sort of believe that these moments in life are what defines you. And I was really proud of how I responded and how I handled it and how I've moved on since.
What was it like to watch the team play without you in Brazil? Did it feel bruising? Was it raw? Was it numbing?
It was really hard to watch the team because you always feel like you can help. When I was young, I got in trouble one time at school, and my mom didn't allow me to play my soccer game that weekend. And I was playing my best friend's team, and because I got in trouble, she said, "You're not playing this weekend." I was devastated, and on Saturday morning, we got up and she said, "We're going to the field." And I said, "I get to play?" And she said, "No, but you're gonna sit and you're gonna watch." And now I get goosebumps thinking about it, because when I sat there and watched, it brought back those same feelings of not being able to be there and play and help. And you know, the biggest thing for me was not I want to be there for me. It's I've been through the hell of U.S. soccer over years. I've been through all the good, all the bad, but I've been through a lot of really hard times. I wanted to be there to help this team get through, whether I played a minute or a second or all the minutes. I just wanted to be there to help because I knew I could have helped, and that was the part that was hardest for me.
On the US team, who will you miss, Landon?
I've played a lot of games with a lot of guys over the years for the U.S. national team, and you have to remember a lot of these environments we play in are supercharged emotionally. They're big, important games, and you live them together. So when you have a bad day, you're all miserable. When you have a great day, you all get to celebrate. Tim Howard has been such a big part of my career, both club and country-wise, and he's been such a great friend and mentor over the year. He's been a real inspiration to me. I really love playing with Brian Ching when he played with the national team. It's been a real blessing to play with Kyle Beckerman now as he's made his way onto the national team and got to play in a World Cup. DeMarcus Beasley, who I grew up with and got to play with, I'll certainly miss playing with. Michael Bradley and I have become very close, so it'll be sad not to play with him anymore. There's a lot of guys that you have a lot of good memories with that I'll miss.
Do you feel like you have a successor?
I've never thought about whether I have a successor or not. I guess there's a lot of different pieces to that question. I think as far as leadership goes and carrying the torch, I think Michael Bradley will take that over very well. As far as on the field actual stuff, it's hard to know. I mean, you never know where the next person is going to come from, and it's not about a guy playing well for a year or two. It's how are we going to find guys like Clint, who's played for 10 plus years, Tim Howard, who's been a mainstay for so many years. how do you find guys like that that can really sustain it and help build the program? That's what we need to find.
Do you see yourself as a guy who's played in a transitional time? Like you were
Yeah.
you were America's best player when being the best soccer player was like being the best yo-yoer or the best didgeridoo player. And now you're the best player when it's like being a big
Pretty
dude.
good yo-yoer too.
You are.
I think our generation has helped tilt the bar to soccer being a real sport in this country. And it's been really nice to be a part of that. Why? I can't tell you, but I'm just glad that I've been able to be a part of it.
Do you wish your whole career had been lived with soccer flourishing rather than being the best player?
No. I am incredibly happy that my career came at a time when it did, because I see other athletes on TV, everything they do is watched and scrutinized, and for many years we didn't have to worry about that. We talk about all the time what a blessing it's been to be right in that in-between period where soccer's not quite that big, but starting to get that big. So you get all the benefits, you get, you know, a little more TV exposure, you get paid well. Sometimes if I go to a restaurant, I get sat down earlier than other people, but you don't deal with paparazzi outside your house, being all over magazines and newspapers. So I think it's been an absolute blessing to be able to play in this time.
We talked about MLS. Can you talk about the state MLS was in when you arrived? 12 teams, 2 were contracting, rumours that the league was going to fold. Can you just paint that picture?
It's crazy to think about, because what would have happened to all of us? How would I mean, a lot of people would have just ended their careers. I don't know that I would have wanted to go play in Europe for my career. Maybe I would have been a teacher or a professor. I wouldn't have ended up as a soccer player. So that was very real at that time, and I think people forget that, and it's only been 13 years since that happened.
I mean, you got Manchester City jumping in, David Beckham rumoured to be jumping in, the Yankees throwing in, Kaká coming over. How has it been as a player for you to go from that kind of derelict 12 teams, oh, there's 10 now, this thing's barely hanging on, to this kind of flourishing league? How have you experienced it? Has it been like living in a tiny village and seeing it become a kind of bustling city?
The way I've seen the growth of our league most is probably through our stadiums. And every year we go into these stadiums and I think to myself, you know, we go into Kansas City and it's sold out with 19,000 people. It's raucous, it's exciting, the fans are there. And I remember playing in Arrowhead Stadium in Kansas City, where there were literally, you could probably spend 12 minutes counting all the people in the stands. And so it's just amazing how the times have changed, how the sport has become so mainstream now in our country, and we're certainly not where we want to be, but the growth has been spectacular.
Did you feel, as a home-loving player, you've suffered for your decision to remain in MLS? A reality which is kind of now standard. Clint's done it, Michael Bradley does it, Mo Adu comes back.
I had no interest in going to Europe and being the 25th guy on a roster and training every day of the week but never playing, and picking up a paycheck and then waking up at 33 years old and going, wow, where did my 20s go? Where did my life go? I see a lot of guys fall into that trap, and there's this allure and this excitement of, quote, playing in Europe that's so exciting for people. And if it's the right situation, that's great, and it's fantastic. And there's no, I mean, I had a great time at Everton. I had a great time at Bayern Munich. I really enjoyed it. But if you're not in a situation that's good for you, it can be absolutely miserable. And that wasn't something I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be in a place where I was enjoying myself. I can be near my family. I can see the beautiful beach every day. That's more important to me than what I do on a soccer field.
What did your time at Everton prove to you about yourself?
Everton, for me, was an opportunity to know that I could play at that level. And I enjoyed it, and I loved it. But probably most importantly, I walked away from there saying, I can play with the best players in the world. And sometimes you play in a World Cup and you're with your team and you say, oh, well, we were good enough to beat that team. But to play consistently in that league at that level really showed me a lot about myself, and it was important for me.
I remember being at Goodison Park and they chanted USA, USA, USA for you. It wasn't for Tim, it was for you. How does that feel as a player?
Having the opportunity to play at that club, people that have never been there and don't understand it will never get it. And when you play there, to have that community support you is so powerful. And as a soccer player, it's the ultimate, because you're on the field and you feel like even if you make a bad pass, even if you miss a chance, you miss a shot, even if you lose a game, as long as you play the game hard, you play the right way, you play honest, they're going to love you. And as a player, that's all you can ask for.
Farewells are for guys who are finished. I look at you play football on a regular basis. You're still so productive.
Yeah, I still feel like I'm productive at this age, and I still feel like I can do it. But that doesn't mean I want to keep doing it. And I don't want my career to end where people are going, God, take him off the field, you know, shoot him already. He's a lame dog. Let him, you know, let him rest in peace. So I do feel like I can still contribute. I can still play well at this level, but physically my body aches a lot of mornings. I've got tendonitis in both of my knees, a lot of days that hurts. My feet hurt, my ankles hurt, different parts of my body, my lower back some days. So I understand that that's part of it, but I don't want to get to a point where I'm just so beaten down physically that I can't walk when I'm done, that I can't play with my kids one day, that kind of stuff. I really want to be able to do those things.
What will you miss?
I'll miss a lot of things. I will certainly miss the guys that I've built relationships with. I'll miss the games. I'll miss the fun practices. I won't miss the hard practices. I won't miss running fitness and stuff like that. I won't miss the travel. I won't miss being in hotels all the time, but I will miss the camaraderie. I will miss the training room with the guys, the locker room, and playing games, because that is so exciting. You know, that's something that's been such a part of my life that it's second nature for me, but the excitement of walking out onto a field with 30,000 people and playing this game is incredible. And so that is going to be hard to replace. How do you replace that in your life? There's grieving, you know, it's a loss. It's like losing a friend, a family member. It's a part of it's a massive part of my life. So I will never go out on a stadium field again under the lights with thousands of people and do this. And so that's been a staple in my life for 16 years, and it'll be gone. And that's going to be a serious grieving process for sure.
Do you ever feel that you're cursed being a complex man playing a simple game?
Well, no, I think it's been a blessing that I'm able to, in my opinion, live life the way I want. And sometimes it probably rubs people the wrong way because they see us playing a sport as the ultimate amazing dream job, which I think it is too. But that being said, there's a lot that can come with that. And for me in particular, I've had quite a bit put on my shoulders over the years. So it was only inevitable at some point that I was going to get burnt out, that I was going to get tired from that. And I guess other athletes probably feel that way and go through stretches where they don't play well, but they just don't admit it. And maybe my flaw is that I'm too honest sometimes, but if I feel it, I'd rather just say it and be honest about it. And you know, at least I know that I've always tried to be honest.
Do you feel that without soccer you can be the real you?
Yes, I think without soccer I will be the real me. And it'll probably take some time because I've been on in this way for so many years. And so, you know, when I walk out on the field, when I walk by fans, when I go to the grocery store, if I meet someone who knows me, you sort of have to turn that on when you do appearances or media interviews, stuff like that. To some extent, you have to be on a little bit. And I'm excited for the chance to get away from that and just find out who I really am without all the soccer and be who I really am without all the soccer.
Do you feel a little bit like the Vincent van Gogh of American soccer? You'll be a man whose achievement, a great achievement, will only truly be appreciated with time.
When I'm dead?
I wasn't going to say that.
It's hard for me to understand or to say what people think of my career, what people will think of my career. All I can focus on and control is that I try to do things the right way. I realize mistakes I've made. I realize I'm not perfect, and that's okay, I'm human, and try to get better. And so that's a philosophy for life, but I've tried to do that in my career too. If people look back and can view it through that lens as opposed to why did he leave San Jose? Why didn't he stay in Leverkusen? Why didn't he go to Europe and play his career? If they can look at it and say, you know what, he was a guy trying to find his way just like everybody else in their 20s, so he didn't make all the decisions we would have made, but at least he tried to do the right thing, then I think people